The children of Princess Leonor of Spain, titles explained. Picture the long marble corridors of the royal palace of Madrid just before dawn, when even the guards seem to move more quietly than usual. Somewhere beyond those doors stands Princess Leonor of Spain, heir to 1,000 years of monarchy, carrying a future that stretches far beyond her own lifetime. And here is the detail almost nobody outside the corridors of power in Washington, London, Ottawa, Canberra, or Berlin truly understands. The future of Spain is not only about the crown she will one day wear. It is about the future children she will one day bring into the world, and the invisible architecture of titles, laws, and constitutional meaning that will surround them from their very first breath. Because in Spain, children born to the heir are never just children. They are living pieces of the state. They are the next links in a chain that has survived wars, dictatorship, exiles, and democratic rebirth. And when people in the United States or the United Kingdom glance at a royal baby and see a charming headline, Spain sees something else entirely. It sees continuity. It sees a future government quietly taking shape inside a cradle. The children of Princess Leonor of Spain, titles explained. Those words sound formal, almost academic, but behind them lies something far more powerful. They describe how an entire nation prepares for the future before it arrives. They explain why the future children of Princess Leonor of Spain will not simply inherit a family name. They will inherit the living future of the Spanish state, where titles are not symbols but the architecture of national continuity. And that is where the first quiet question begins to form, a question that already whispers through royal protocol offices and constitutional law circles from Madrid to Berlin. When those children are born, what exactly will they be called, and what will those titles quietly commit them to becoming? Because in a constitutional monarchy, titles are never decorative. They are legal instruments. They are the visible expression of invisible power, carefully balanced between history and democracy. This is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of continuity. And once you understand that, you begin to realize why the future of Spain is already being written, even before Princess Leonor of Spain becomes a mother. Across the Atlantic, observers in the US and UK frame this moment differently. In America, where leadership is elected, the idea of birth shaping the state feels distant. In Britain, where King Charles III's line is watched with almost cinematic intensity, the power of royal children is better understood. Yet in Spain, it takes on a uniquely constitutional weight. Here, national identity is woven into these rituals, binding past and present in a single moment. And so the first cliffhanger emerges, quietly but unmistakably. When Princess Leonor of Spain has her first child, will that baby be born into a role already defined by law, or will Spain still be reshaping what the monarchy even means in the 21st century? To answer that, you have to understand the title that already defines Princess Leonor of Spain herself. She is not just a princess. She is the Princess of Asturias, a title older than most modern states, created to designate the heir to the Spanish throne. It is the Spanish equivalent of the Prince of Wales in the UK, but with its own deep constitutional gravity. And here is where everything becomes quietly explosive. The children of the Princess of Asturias do not float outside this system. They are born directly into it. The moment the first child of Princess Leonor of Spain is born, that child becomes an infante or infanta of Spain by law. Not by tradition, not by courtesy, by law. That title places them inside the royal family as part of the state's institutional framework. In Germany, constitutional lawyers would describe this as embedded continuity. In Canada and Australia, both constitutional monarchies themselves, they would recognize it as the quiet machinery that keeps a crown legally alive. And yet, even that is only the beginning. If Princess Leonor of Spain has more than one child, the order of birth will instantly shape their destiny. Spain follows absolute primogeniture. That means the eldest child, whether male or female, becomes first in line to the throne after their mother. That eldest child would carry the future title of Princess or Prince of Asturias, the same title Princess Leonor of Spain holds today. From birth, that child would be trained, protected, and prepared not just as a member of a family, but as a future head of state. So imagine it for a moment. A newborn, held in the arms of Princess Leonor of Spain, already positioned by the Constitution to become Queen or King of Spain one day. This is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of continuity. It is the state quietly placing its future in the smallest of hands. And here comes the next unsettling question. What happens to the other children? Because the second child, the third, the fourth, they will also carry royal titles, but they will exist in a different orbit. They will be infantes or infantas of Spain, styled as Royal Highness, but they will not carry the direct weight of succession. They will live inside the institution without being destined to rule it. In the UK, this is the difference between the Prince of Wales and his siblings. In Spain, it is just as sharp, just as meaningful. Yet this is where things become more intriguing. Spain's monarchy has been shaped by modern constitutional limits in a way few outsiders truly grasp. Titles today do not grant political power. They grant constitutional identity. They mark who belongs to the crown as an institution. And that is why the future children of Princess Leonor of Spain are not just heirs of blood, but heirs of legal continuity. Across Europe, Germany watches these systems closely, because stability in Spain affects the entire European Union. In the United States, foreign policy analysts quietly understand that a stable monarchy supports Spain's democratic framework. And in Australia and Canada, where royal succession still echoes through their own constitutional structures, the birth of a Spanish royal child is not gossip. It is governance by another name. Which leads us to the second cliffhanger. What if Princess Leonor of Spain's eldest child is born in a time of political upheaval? Would that title still hold the nation together the way it has for generations? Because history has already tested Spain's monarchy. It collapsed. It returned. It transformed. And yet the title survived, quietly carrying the idea of continuity through exile and restoration. That is why national identity is woven into these rituals. They are not about luxury. They are about survival. Now let's look at the 3 subtle clues that already tell us how seriously this future is being prepared. The first clue is body language. Watch Princess Leonor of Spain at state events. The way she stands beside King Felipe VI. The way she receives military honors. The way she speaks in formal addresses. She is being shaped not as a celebrity, but as a constitutional anchor. And that same discipline will one day be mirrored in her children, especially the one destined to inherit her title. The second clue comes from media and protocol. Spanish royal coverage does not speculate wildly about romances or scandals. It focuses on duty, education, and preparation. This is the institutional language of continuity. It is Spain quietly telling the world that when the future children arrive, they will be treated not as entertainment but as national assets. And the third clue is found in law. Spain's constitution does not leave succession to chance. It defines it. It protects it. It ensures that the children of Princess Leonor of Spain will step into a framework that existed long before they were born and will outlive them by centuries. And here is the moment where everything tightens. Because this is not just about who wears a crown. It is about who embodies the state when no one else can. Observers in the US and UK frame this moment differently, yet the continuity echoes across continents. In Washington, continuity is maintained through elections and institutions. In London, it is embodied in royal bloodlines. In Madrid, it is both. A democratic constitution, anchored by a hereditary crown. So the midpoint question begins to glow with intensity. When the future children of Princess Leonor of Spain step into the world, will they represent a modernized monarchy that reflects today's Spain, or will they be asked to carry the full symbolic weight of its past? Because titles do more than name. They assign destiny. Imagine the eldest child of Princess Leonor of Spain being styled Prince or Princess of Asturias. That title alone signals to every ambassador, every foreign leader, every constitutional court that Spain's future has a face. In Germany, it would be read as stability. In Canada and Australia, it would be seen as a familiar constitutional rhythm. In the United States, it would quietly reassure allies that Spain's leadership will not vanish into uncertainty. This is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of continuity. And yet, even within this order, there is a human story. The younger children, the infantes and infantas, will grow up knowing they are close to the throne but never meant to sit on it. Their titles will give them dignity, responsibility, and lifelong connection to the crown, but not ultimate authority. They will be diplomats of identity, living bridges between the monarchy and the public. Which leads us to the next cliffhanger. Will those children become the monarchy's greatest strength, or its most delicate vulnerability? Because in every royal family, history has shown that siblings can stabilize a throne, or quietly complicate it. At the 10-minute mark, the tension deepens. Spain is not the Spain of a century ago. It is a modern European democracy, sensitive to public opinion, regional identities, and global scrutiny. When the children of Princess Leonor of Spain are born, their titles will be received not just in Madrid, but in Barcelona, Seville, Washington, London, Ottawa, Canberra, and Berlin. Every one of those capitals will interpret what those names mean for Spain's future. This is the midpoint escalation. The future children will not only inherit titles, they will inherit a global audience. And now the third cliffhanger begins to take shape. What if public sentiment shifts? What if the monarchy is questioned? Would those titles still be strong enough to hold the line of continuity? History suggests they might, because titles, when rooted in law and tradition, become more than words. They become anchors. Spain's monarchy learned this the hard way in the 20th century. It was removed. It was restored. And when it returned, it did so with a new constitutional role, one that emphasized stability over power. That is the model Princess Leonor of Spain is inheriting. And it is the model her children will be born into. National identity is woven into these rituals. Every christening, every formal title, every line of succession quietly reaffirms that Spain exists not just as a territory, but as a continuous state. By the time we reach the 14-minute mark, another question hangs in the air. When the eldest child of Princess Leonor of Spain becomes Princess or Prince of Asturias, will that title feel like a relic of the past, or a promise of the future? Because that is what titles really do. They promise that tomorrow will still recognize yesterday. Canada and Australia see this gesture as symbolic, but Germany interprets it as constitutional resilience. In the US, where institutions are often tested by political storms, the idea that a single family can embody continuity feels almost foreign. Yet Spain has found a way to make both coexist. And so the story turns quietly toward the long view. These children will grow up in a world of digital media, instant scrutiny, and global politics. Their titles will be analyzed, debated, and sometimes criticized. But the structure behind those titles will remain. Because it was built to survive. This is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of continuity. As we approach the 19th minute, a final safe foreshadow appears. One day, perhaps decades from now, one of the future children of Princess Leonor of Spain will stand where she once stood, carrying the same title, the same weight, the same quiet promise of stability. The monarchy will not be the same. The world will not be the same. But the chain will remain unbroken. And that brings us to the closing question, the one that lingers long after the palace lights go out. When those children are born, will we recognize them as just another generation of royals, or as the living future of the Spanish state? Because the truth is this. The children of Princess Leonor of Spain will not simply inherit a family name. They will inherit the living future of the Spanish state, where titles are not symbols, but the architecture of national continuity. Their names will carry law. Their roles will carry history. Their existence will quietly reassure a nation that tomorrow has already been prepared. So the next time you hear the phrase future children, remember what it really means. It is not about babies in a palace. It is about a country placing its faith in continuity, in identity, and in a future that begins long before it arrives. And as Spain moves forward, watched by the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, and Germany, one question will remain just out of reach, waiting for the next chapter to begin. When those children finally step into the light, what kind of Spain will they be asked to represent? Picture the palace again, but this time years into the future. The marble floors still shine, the flags still move in the slow Madrid air, but the faces have changed. Somewhere inside, the future children of Princess Leonor of Spain are no longer infants. They are being introduced to the world, one carefully choreographed appearance at a time, not because it looks beautiful on camera, but because this is how a nation is taught to recognize its own continuity. And this is where the story becomes even more delicate. Because once a royal child is old enough to walk, their title begins to speak for them. When the eldest child of Princess Leonor of Spain is formally styled Princess or Prince of Asturias, the message is not whispered. It is announced to every capital that matters. To Washington, to London, to Ottawa, to Canberra, to Berlin. Spain is telling the world, without saying a word, this is our future. This is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of continuity. From that moment forward, the hierarchy becomes visible. The heir's title will place them at the center of every constitutional ritual. Military academies will plan for their education. Diplomatic protocols will quietly adjust. Even the order of seating at state banquets will change to reflect the future of the throne. And the younger future children, the infantes and infantas of Spain, will orbit around that central figure, forming a living image of stability. But here is the twist almost nobody notices. Those secondary titles are not decorative. They are structural. In times of crisis, when the heir is young or unable to act, those infantes and infantas become the extended architecture of the crown. They attend events, maintain visibility, and keep the monarchy present in public life. Germany would call this institutional redundancy. The UK would recognize it instantly. It is how a system ensures it never disappears from view. And that brings us to a new quiet cliffhanger. What if one day, Spain needs not just one royal figure, but several, to keep the idea of the crown alive? Because history has shown that continuity is not always carried by a single person. Sometimes it is upheld by a family, each member holding a piece of the national image. Across the Atlantic, Canada and Australia understand this better than most. Their own monarchies are represented by governors, ceremonies, and symbols that stretch beyond one face. Spain does the same, but through bloodlines and titles. And this is where the role of the future children becomes even more powerful. Together, they will form what constitutional scholars call the visible embodiment of the state. Not politicians, not parties, but living, breathing continuity. National identity is woven into these rituals. Every public appearance, every formal title, every carefully framed photograph is not about glamour. It is about reminding a nation that it still has a center. Now imagine a moment of uncertainty. A political crisis. A fractured parliament. A restless public. In those moments, the crown does not legislate. It stabilizes. And the faces of that stability will not only be Princess Leonor of Spain, but her children, standing behind her, carrying titles that quietly say, Spain continues. And here comes the next cliffhanger. When the world looks to Spain in a moment of crisis, will it be one royal face it sees, or an entire generation of future children ready to hold the line? Because that is what these titles are really designed to do. They create not just an heir, but a system of presence that never goes dark. This is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of continuity. As the future children grow, their presence is felt long before they speak their first words in public. Spain does not allow childhood to exist in isolation from duty. Education, language, protocol, and diplomacy are woven into daily life, almost invisibly, yet meticulously. From Madrid classrooms to royal residences, they are surrounded by advisors, tutors, and ceremonial guides, shaping them to inhabit the roles their titles demand. Even in play, gestures are watched. Every nod, every posture, every glance is part of a living tutorial in continuity. And here is where the third cliffhanger emerges. How much of childhood can remain untouched when a nation has already claimed your destiny at birth? The world outside sees only charm and innocence. Washington and London note their public appearances with polite intrigue. Berlin analyzes their titles. Ottawa and Canberra, distant yet attentive, quietly admire the resilience of the institution. But behind palace walls, these children are not simply growing, they are being integrated into the architecture of the state itself. Titles, in this context, are more than names, they are legal scaffolding. Spain's constitution and royal decrees ensure that the eldest child's role as princess or prince of Asturias is recognized in every ceremony, every document, and every diplomatic engagement. The younger children, while not first in line, serve as anchors of visibility. They reinforce the institution by their mere existence, a network of legitimacy woven into a living family. Canada and Australia see this as symbolic, but Germany interprets it as constitutional resilience. In Spain, it is both. By the midpoint, the future children are not only symbols, they are instruments of continuity. When they appear at state functions, their positioning is deliberate, their interactions choreographed, their visibility intentional. Each handshake, each bow, each introduction is a lesson in what it means to embody the monarchy. This is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of continuity. And yet, the public rarely perceives the strategic orchestration behind each move. And now comes the fourth cliffhanger. When these children inherit the responsibilities their titles promise, will they carry forward a monarchy fully in tune with modern Spain, or merely a historic symbol tethered to expectation? Every gesture will be read internationally. In Washington, foreign policy analysts will note their engagement with diplomatic visitors. In London, courtiers and observers will compare protocols to those of the British royal family. Ottawa and Canberra will quietly log ceremonial participation as part of their constitutional reflections. Berlin will assess their visibility as a marker of national resilience. Every title, every public act, every role they assume will ripple far beyond Spain's borders. Education and preparation intensify as these children mature. Historical lessons, linguistic training, civic understanding, and ceremonial mastery are introduced not just as subjects but as imperatives. The eldest child studies the Constitution alongside private tutors, understanding that being princess or prince of Asturias is not about spectacle, it is a public duty codified by law. Siblings, the infantes and infantas, are trained in diplomacy, history, and cultural literacy, reinforcing the monarchy's visible presence and preparing for contingencies, public or political. And here is the mid-rolled tease. The future children of Princess Leonor of Spain are not just heirs, they are living protocols in motion. When one of them steps forward in an official capacity, it is not just a ceremonial moment. It is a constitutional signal. Continuity is active, visible, and unquestionable. The architecture of titles, prepared long before their first public address, ensures that Spain will never lack an anchor for stability. By adolescence, the children are navigating public perception alongside royal duty. Every appearance, every photograph, every televised moment is analyzed, both domestically and internationally. In Germany, scholars trace lineage and ceremonial consistency. In the US, political observers quietly note the monarchy's capacity to maintain relevance. London compares gestures to tradition. Ottawa and Canberra assess continuity in real time. And in Madrid, palace staff know that each smile, bow, or greeting carries far more weight than most people will ever realize. A fifth cliffhanger arises here. How will the next generation of Spain's monarchy handle the tension between personal identity and institutional expectation? Will their titles be a cage, a shield, or a bridge? This question hovers over every decision, every public appearance, and every private lesson in the palace corridors. Even now, the principle remains unchanged. The future children of Princess Leonor of Spain will not simply inherit a family name. They inherit the living future of the Spanish state. Each title is more than tradition, it is a living contract with the nation, a declaration that continuity is not abstract, but embodied, visible, and unbroken. And as we approach the 20th minute, the subtle forward-looking cliffhanger emerges. One day, these children will step fully into the roles their titles demand. They will represent not just a family, but centuries of constitutional resilience. And the world, Washington, London, Ottawa, Canberra, Berlin, will watch, not for spectacle, but for the enduring proof that Spain's monarchy continues, quietly, visibly, and unassailably. The future children are no longer merely a concept, they are the living thread of Spain's history stretching into tomorrow. Now, as we reach the final chapter of this story, the focus tightens on what the future children of Princess Leonor of Spain will mean for the nation when they finally step fully into the light. The palace corridors may remain silent to outsiders, but inside, every lesson, every gesture, every title is part of a carefully orchestrated choreography of continuity. These children will not simply grow into a role, they will become the living embodiment of Spain's constitutional heartbeat. The eldest child, as princess or prince of Asturias, will stand at the center of this carefully constructed architecture. Their title is more than honorific, it is the legal and symbolic anchor that assures the nation's institutions remain unbroken. Across the Atlantic, analysts in Washington and London will interpret their first public speeches as indicators of stability. Berlin will evaluate their conduct as a demonstration of constitutional resilience. Ottawa and Canberra will quietly benchmark Spain's succession protocols against their own, noting how a monarchy can maintain relevance in a modern democracy. The younger siblings, the infantes and infantas of Spain, will serve as indispensable extensions of that continuity. Not destined to rule, yet never removed from the structure, their titles carry the weight of presence, ensuring that the crown's visibility never falters. Every formal appearance, every public engagement, every ceremonial gesture is carefully calibrated to reassure not only Spaniards but the world that the monarchy is alive, active, and unassailable. This is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of continuity. And here is the final cliffhanger. When the future children assume their formal roles, will they transform the monarchy into a symbol that fully embraces 21st century Spain, or will they carry the weight of tradition so heavily that it reshapes their very identity? The answer will unfold slowly, observed in every decision, every public smile, every diplomatic handshake. History has always tested heirs, but these children carry the lessons of a restored monarchy, a constitutional framework, and a nation that has endured centuries of upheaval. Even as they grow, the Spanish state has already set expectations. Education, ceremony, protocol, and law converge to create not just heirs, but guardians of continuity. National identity is woven into every ritual. Continuity is not abstract here, it is embodied in visible presence. When one of these children steps into a room, the country sees not only a family member but a custodian of Spain's living legacy. As the cameras follow them in the future, the phrase future children will no longer be hypothetical, it will be a declaration of constitutional certainty, of family, of state. Spain, watched closely from Washington to Berlin, London to Canberra, will recognize that the monarchy's continuity is not a relic of the past but a living, breathing system prepared to endure. Every smile, every gesture, every formal address will echo the principle that titles are not symbols, they are the architecture of national continuity. And finally, as the chapter closes, the forward-looking tease hangs quietly yet powerfully in the air. One day, these children will rise to prominence, carrying the responsibilities of the crown, the expectations of the nation, and the eyes of the world. Their actions will define not only Spain's monarchy but Spain's place on the global stage. The future children of Princess Leonor of Spain will inherit more than titles, they will inherit the living future of a state, and in their hands, the continuity of centuries-old institutions will remain unbroken. Remember this phrase, one last time, future children. They are more than heirs. They are the living proof that Spain's monarchy continues, quietly, visibly, and unassailably, guiding the nation into tomorrow.